Some people think I need to be in jail.
That he could have killed himself, killed his best friend.
Her hearts are made of stone.
2-2 from 2-24.
This guy needs to die now.
Put their guns in their face and told us to get down.
Am I gonna go to jail?
Youth crime. It's a vital issue for Canadians. Equally important, the way we deal with it, youth justice.
Hi, I'm Juliet Powell. There's a change underway in this country, one that will have a significant and far-reaching effect. The government is renewing our youth justice system. In responding to Canadians' concerns about how youth are dealt with under the current law, the government is forging a new approach. Too many young Canadians are being brought into the youth criminal justice system, and Canada's rate of youth incarceration is the highest among developed countries. Studies clearly show that alternatives to custody are more meaningful and effective in dealing with youth crime. The new approach will encourage young people to avoid crime, provide meaningful consequences for those who commit it, and help young people in trouble turn their lives around. Many Canadians believe that not enough has been done to prevent troubled youth from entering a life of crime. The new youth justice system introduces prevention programs that address the root causes of criminal behavior in young people. After all, the best way to fight youth crime is to stop it before it starts.
These young people are on their way to Alden, Ontario to get their hands dirty. They're part of a program called Second Chance, just one of a number of Department of Justice pilot projects aimed at young people. Working outdoors is a big part of this prevention program. It gets these young people thinking positively about their environment and about themselves.
And the idea of the trees is to provide shade for the stream.
Yeah, I think to me it's real good because I'm doing something for the community. Even though it's not in my community, it's another person's community. I feel a lot good that I planted like 20 trees. You feel real good after.
These are the kind of kids, and they'll tell you stories, they're the kind of kids that grow up with magnifying glasses, burning bugs, and shooting pellet guns at birds, and things like that. So there's not a level of respect, nor is there a level of appreciation. So it's such a valuable experience to take a kid and say, this is the wilderness. They start to form connections with it, and they see that animals and nature are just as much in need of help as they are.
After my dad died, I took the kind of heavy, so to me, I started drinking, doing drugs, so I kept on getting in trouble with the law. So I kept on going back and forth in that jail and in that jail. And then my mom was like, you're turning out like your father, because my father died while he was in jail. So my mom kicked me out because she didn't want me to influence my brother.
Most of the young people at Second Chance have already come in conflict with the law. That means that we can't reveal their faces or tell you their names, but we can bring you their stories.
I went out with my cousin, went to go to his girlfriend's house.
Hey, boys.
And somebody asked him for a cigarette. He said he never had a cigarette.
What about you, man?
And the guy asked me for a cigarette, and I told him I never had a cigarette. So the guy pulled out like a syringe, tried to stab my cousin with it, so me and my cousin beat him up. And then when we were walking to his girlfriend's house, the cops came and they just put their guns in our face and told us to get down on the floor, and they just arrested us.
He was sentenced to community service and 1 year of probation, but he says Second Chance is what really changed him.
I used to be a real ignorant person. If somebody would say something to me that I wouldn't like, I'll just say forget it and just walk away and just do my own thing. But now I learned to laugh about it, you know what I'm saying? It's like if somebody would say something about my mom, I'll just laugh about it and make a joke about it, so everybody's laughing and it's not like the joke's on me. We keep tighter like that. It's like a team.
When we accept a young person into this program, we have to feel that there is a readiness for change. For some of these young people, they feel they've hit rock bottom. They have nowhere to go but up. And these people are very influential in the program because they interact with those who are in a downward spiral, and they can say, "Stop, man," as the saying goes. "Look at what has happened to me. Do you want this to happen to you?"
Today, these young people are helping to renovate a classroom. They're also learning to rebuild their self-confidence.
Personally, I get a thrill out of working, like with my hands and stuff like that, because like I'm good with my hands. Like, you're giving me something to do, I can do it, right? So it's very encouraging when they say, "Yeah, I got something to do with hands." You know, to me, it's like saying, "Yeah, this is what I want to do," so it's encouraging me to go do it.
Positive experiences are crucial for these young people. Many of them come from troubled homes. Most of them have experienced difficulty at school.
Since I was like in grade 10, that's when the school just started turning upside down for me. Because I would go to school, but I would have skipped a lot of days, and because I didn't like the teachers. I felt like the teachers didn't treat me fairly because I can't really like read or write so good. But I could read, but I can't spell. And they used to like put me in special classes. They never used to help me, never used to pay attention to me. So then after I said, since they're not paying attention to me, then I don't need to be here.
I think the one common theme is no matter where a kid is coming from or what the history is with the legal system or what the family unit is like, the one thing that's in common with these kids is they have zero self-esteem. They don't feel that they're capable of accomplishing anything. And I think what makes Second Chance such a valuable program is that it puts opportunities in front of them to achieve something. And so they rise to the occasion and they do these things, and then all of a sudden it's, well, I'm not as dumb as I've been told all my life, and I am capable of something. So something as small as building a little dam to help fish carry on up a stream, that gets translated into, well, if I can do that, I can learn how to use a computer. I can learn how to get my grade 10 math, and it just snowballs.
Now I know, like, there is a purpose to life, and this is what Second Chance gave me. They gave me the head start to know that, like, when I get older in the long run, that I'm gonna need like a personal goal. Like if I want to become a hairdresser, I'm gonna need to know that now, like for sure. Because from before I wasn't even so sure what I want to become. From before I wanted to be a cosmetician, I want to be a hairdresser, I want to work with kids. But now I'm more than certain that I want to be a hairdresser because Second Chance, like they gave me the chance to see like what it is.
I think there's a big turn point. I felt like after my mom died, now that it was last week, I didn't feel like coming back to the program. I talked to Diane, me and Diane were talking, me and Nicole were talking, and they're saying, look, I've came so far in the program, why am I just going to jeopardize it all now? Like, so they gave me a better outlook on like what I've accomplished in here and not to just give up.
Just like everybody says, I can't teach you to read, you gotta want to learn how to read. You gotta really want it. If a person wants a difference, this is a program to come to learn the tactics and the things to go about doing stuff in the real world. That's why I say here's the place to come to learn it if you really want to.
This is downtown Montreal, and like a lot of cities in Canada, you'll see young people living on the streets. Most of them are poor, and many of them are at risk of getting into trouble. Marc Patry knows all about that life. He dropped out of school and left home when he was in grade 7.
Well,
at the beginning I was fine. I had a job and stuff. Then I started to go out with this girl, and then I began doing drugs. At that time, I lost everything. Absolutely everything. All my belongings, everything I had in my apartment. After that, I started to live in Montreal on the street. And I started to squeegee, also to panhandle. It was like that. I was doing a lot of drugs, and it was mainly for that reason. Not really for eating or paying rent that I was doing that. panhandling.
Looking back, he says he turned to drugs because he was angry over something terrible that happened when he was just a boy.
Because when I was young, my uncle, you know, he had a friend, and my uncle's friend raped me. And this is in part why I started. And when I tried to tell my parents about it, you know, my mother, she did not want to believe me. The first time, I was 5. Then, when I was 8, he came back to our house. And during the whole summer, he did it every single day.
Like most squeegee kids, Marc Battery received fines for squeegeeing and panhandling. If they're not paid off, those fines can end up totaling hundreds, even thousands of dollars. The Squeegee Kids Project encourages young people to deal with those debts by offering them part-time paying jobs. The program then helps the kids come up with a plan for reducing some of the fines and paying off the rest. But the biggest benefit from the Squeegee Kids Project is that it helps to build a young person's self-confidence.
Well, it showed me that I was able to go to work and to be on a schedule and to get to work in time every day. And it showed me that, you know, I could be self-sufficient in a way.
We try to give them a bit of a sense of accomplishment, because they never accomplish anything. The only place where they are told that they are beautiful and nice is in the street. But often it's for a financial hidden agenda that they are told that they are beautiful and nice. So what we try to do is to give them a sense of accomplishment and to show them that they are capable, and we don't ask too many questions. When they have a small accomplishment, we hope that we can rekindle the flame burning in them and then help them to go further.
Every dollar invested in helping a young person at risk saves society $7 in social costs because the young person avoids a life of crime as they get older. This concept of early intervention has found support across the country.
We can reduce crime really as a byproduct of a sensible response or sensible interventions in people's lives that are really being done for other kinds of reasons, of helping people who are in need. A lot of people who are poor, who don't have certain kinds of skills, can be helped, and we do that because we think it's important for them and for their children. We're not really doing it for ourselves. It turns out that there's a sort of selfish benefit as well, which is that they're going to be less involved in crime later on.
Marc Battery continues to work for the Squeegee Kids Project. He's found help for his drug problem, and he's got a home, one that he shares with his girlfriend and their baby daughter. Now that he's getting his life together, he's got hope for hers.
Well, I hope that she would stay in school, and she will never do what I did. I would like it if she would not end up in the street, prostituting herself or doing any other stuff of that kind. I would like it if she would do something respectable, you know, positive.
While prevention programs can address some of the problems facing today's youth, not all of them are going to make smart choices. In fact, young people account for only 8% of Canada's total population, but they make up 22% of those who are charged by police. In the past, the Young Offenders Act was often criticized for not being tough enough in some cases, too severe in others. Part of the challenge of the new youth justice system is to ensure that a young person's punishment is in keeping with the seriousness of their crime. Meaningful consequences for those who do get in trouble with the law.
It was just before Halloween, and me and my friend Mike were just out on Main Street walking around, and he told me about this bike, and he told me he wanted it, and he just asked me to go get it for him.
Well, it was like right before Halloween, and I was just gonna go out for trick-or-treating, and then I went outside, and I'm just gonna put my bike in the shed, and I went out and it wasn't there.
Well, it was right by the step of the house, I think, and I just grabbed it, and we started biking through a trail in the woods.
His case was referred to a rural New Brunswick program that's offering young people who've committed less serious crimes an alternative to going to court. It's called the Restoring Justice in Rural Communities program. In order to participate, young people have to take responsibility for their actions, and they're encouraged to make amends.
I'll contact the young person and ask them, explain them their rights, tell them that the file's been referred to me, and ask them if they'd like to learn more about the program and possibly participate. Sometimes they're like, yes, I want to participate and I want to go to court right away. And I'm like, well, maybe you should hear about what it entails, because it's kind of, it's a rough ride for them. You have to face the community, you have to tell people that you've grown up around what you did, you have to face your victim, their family.
I just felt really bad, really guilty, and I didn't really want to meet them because I didn't know what was going to happen.
I was mad they stole my bike, and he probably was pretty upset at what he did too, and he's probably not going to do it again because he doesn't want to be known as a thief.
Is it this one, or is it this one here?
The bright yellow one.
The bright yellow one, the scorcher, the stuck bike.
The program helped the young man who stole the bike realize the impact the theft had on other people. He decided to make up for it by buying the 10-year-old a brand new bike to replace the one that had been stripped for parts. It was an expensive lesson, but a very important one.
No, it's not right to steal. And I'll never do it again. If I ever do see somebody doing it, then I'm going to let them know that it's not right.
2 from 2 off the 24. I'm going to be
like most community-based programs, this one receives the majority of its referrals from the local police.
There's a couple of young people gathered here and appears to be liquor involved, so just give me a 10-minute timer, please.
The police help decide whether a case goes to court or the young person is offered an alternative, like the Restoring Justice in Rural Communities program.
So if the police know about our program, trust us, and are willing to give us files, an offense could happen last week and it could be on my desk tomorrow. And that lets me, I'll contact the young person very quickly, and then there's that correlation for them with, I did this and now I'm being contacted by Jennifer and I'm going to have to do something to make up for what I did, rather than waiting 4 months for a court date.
I find the program very beneficial. I know when I refer a young person to this program, I'm satisfied in my own mind that it's going to be dealt with probably better than if the young person had gone through the court system.
Community-based measures for less serious crimes not only help to reduce the stress on the courts, they reduce the stress on the kids.
The fact of coming into court often has a stigmatizing effect on a youth, and it may be more difficult to help a youth find a different direction in his or her life if you bring them into court, because it engages the person and creates a special kind of identity that sometimes young people can't seem to rise above.
That's especially true in small, rural communities where everyone knows everyone else.
They're labeled. Yeah, the kids really get labeled quickly. In a city, few people might know that, you got caught with marijuana, or they might know, a couple people might know that you got in trouble doing something. But in a small area, everybody knows, and everybody knows quite quickly. But with this program, there's not as much of a stigma, and everyone leaves. It's almost like a clean slate when you leave the session.
We tried family counseling.
This session is a little bit unusual. It's a conference between a mother and her daughter.
She said, call the cops. She said, you've called them on my brother before, call them on me. And then she said, I'll break the window, that'll get you to call them.
And I went in my room and I threw a book at the window. It didn't break the first time, and then I went over and I didn't even punch it, I hardly even hit it.
Smash.
A tense situation almost became even more serious.
I went upstairs and I grabbed her by the hair of the head, and then I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I would hurt her.
Instead, she called the police. The 13-year-old daughter was charged with vandalism.
Maybe we can help you come up with some ideas of something you could do for your mom.
Both daughter and mother recognize they have trouble communicating with each other.
This is your copy.
During the conference, they strike on a solution. The daughter signs a contract that says she'll schedule quality time with her mom and keep those appointments every week.
if you complete everything successfully by the dates that we have on here, then this file will not be sent on to court, and you will not get a criminal record for vandalism.
It's an important moment for the young girl, and just as important for her community. Programs like these provide an opportunity for all of us to be part of the solution.
Well, I have a number of volunteers that are trained to do the sessions, but then I have also a number of volunteers, just regular community people, everybody from the cashier at the corner store to the bank manager. Everybody is participating. The solutions are already in the community. They just need the resources, the respect, and the opportunity to be able to bring them into play.
Oh, there was just so much going through my head, you know, like, the biggest thing I was worried about was, like, at the time was, like, am I gonna go to jail?
He was just 13 when he stole a brand new truck from a Calgary street. It was the early hours of the morning, and he and his young passenger were on a joyride. When he realized that they were being followed by the police, he stepped on the gas and tried to escape.
I was going about 130, and I was going around this wide turn, and I caught some gravel on the right side of the road, and the back end kicked out, and we skipped the median and went through 3 fences, and then we hit a retaining wall going at, they said, approximately like 100 kilometers an hour.
The vehicle was totaled. Both boys were almost killed. The young driver was referred to a Calgary program that targets offenses that are serious enough to warrant criminal charges and custody.
Order in court, all rise.
A young person must first enter a guilty plea. They also have to meet their victims in a community conference.
We owe it to kids to not just punish and do the discipline route. That can be part of the learning. But if we're not giving them a chance to really understand what they've done, they're not going to learn a different way to do it. And sometimes that's simply a matter of how did it impact people.
I thought I kind of owed it to them, you know, even though I didn't know them. You know, like, if they wanted to, you know, I was willing. And then morning hit, and I was just like, well, as we were driving to the place, I was just like scared, you know. I'm like, geez, I don't know if I want to do this.
I wasn't worried about meeting him. I wanted to see where this person was coming from. We were probably anxious. We wanted to meet him to see what was going on and, you know, what kind of punk was this.
And then I get there and I'm just like, well, they probably were just like me when I was little, you know, like, maybe not with some of the crime and whatever, but yeah, they were down to earth and they were pretty cool about it, you know, like, I was amazed, like, I thought, like, I know I would just be flipping out if someone stole my truck.
So we ended up meeting them, and he had brought his whole family, and me and my husband went and met with them, and so we got to tell him how we felt about the situation, and we told him how angry and disappointed we were, and how we were concerned about his life, that he could have killed himself, killed his best friend, and you know, some of us shed tears, and his mom, and it was a great opportunity to get involved with this.
The boy offered to provide 40 hours of personal service to Monica Nasachuk and her family, doing lawn work, even helping them move. The community conference reduced it to 20 hours. When he returned for sentencing, the court considered whether the boy had lived up to his promises.
What that does, and I think this is really significant, is that it puts the whole accountability question back into the kid and family's laps. It's not about whether the lawyers make a better or worse argument than each other. It's about the kid having made a commitment that's come from them, not from an adult, but from them. Have they done it? Have you followed through? That can have an impact on sentencing in a quite positive sense for a kid. It can have an impact on sentencing in a quite negative sense. But the important piece is that it's up to the kid.
In this case, the boy had completed his hours of personal service. The judge gave him 18 months probation instead of sentencing him to custody.
I think what I did is better than going to jail because, I mean, if you might not learn if you go to jail, you know, like you would never, like I would never know how it affected them, like Mike and Monica. I would never know, like, now they only had one vehicle to, like, go to work and, like, drop their kids off at daycare, and just little things like that, you know? And, like, that actually made me, like, learn, and, like, I don't know, it helped me a lot.
Here in Canada, we sentence youth to custody at a rate that's 4 times higher than the rate for adults. In fact, we've developed quite a reputation for having the highest youth incarceration rates in the Western world, even higher than the United States.
The problem is, at the moment, somewhere, depending on how you define it, but somewhere between about 45 and about 75% of the kids who are being sent to jail in this country are being sent to jail for very minor kinds of offenses. Offenses like minor thefts, for not showing up to court, and those sorts of things. We're wasting very limited resources on punishing kids for doing very, very minor things. Now, we may have to punish them, but we don't have to punish them in a way that's really disproportionate to what they're doing.
The youth justice system helps to reduce the number of young people sentenced to custody by encouraging community-based measures for less serious crimes. It's an approach that's winning support in some very important circles.
The reason I like this new Youth Criminal Justice Act so much is that I think it will put some more chances for the youth on the table that judges can look at and say, well, rather than choose custody and give up entirely on the youth, because often that's what you're doing as a judge if you say, we're going to put you in custody, because you can't have too much hope that that youth is going to change his or her behavior in custody. The judge then has the chance to say, rather than custody, let's look at these choices and see if there's something that I can do that might bring this youth around.
Well, it probably all started in '97. I was, my parents had split up, right, after my whole life. I was, I guess, 14. They split up, and I took it hard. Now, looking back at it, I used it as a cop-out to sort of say, okay, my parents are split up. They're fighting in between themselves, so boom, I can go do whatever I want. Like, our big thing was we'd go into a house, we'd get everything we wanted, and then hopefully we'd find cash so we could take a taxi cab back to the neighborhood, because we wouldn't do them in our own neighborhood, right? We'd spread out, you know, like, then they can't catch you, is what our thought was, you know.
Eventually, they did catch him. He was charged with breaking into 11 homes, although he admits to have committed more than 30 break-and-enters. A probation officer suggested the Calgary Community Conferencing Project.
Christmas Eve, I think it was. And she just mentioned it. She also mentioned a couple other programs. And I said, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, initially at the start, yes, it was. This is a way to sort of get out of, you know, get out of this. You know, I might be able, because like I said, I didn't want it. I didn't want to totally change and reform as soon as I got out of jail.
When we get the referral, we want to meet with that kid first and with his family and talk with them about, you know, and oftentimes we ask questions that they hadn't even considered. You know, so what do you think it's like for the 7-year-old to sleep in their room because you went through their window? Well, they probably never thought of that. So we want to have an opportunity for them to hear that and feel that in a way that they won't in court. Because the court will be about section whatever of the criminal code. It won't be about the 7-year-old's window.
The boy, along with members of his family, agreed to meet his victims face to face.
This is scary. This is going to be weird, you know. It's like, it's over just at my community hall. We're going to have a town lynching, right? You know, that's what I thought. I was freaked out. But I thought, hey, you know, ultimately, that's the right thing to do. We walked in, we sat in our own little room, and they were all there, and, you know, I could tell from the cars out front, and, you know, there's people here, and I could hear kids running around, and it was something else, you know, it's like walking almost into the gauntlet.
For a 14-year-old to sit in a circle for 7 hours with, say, let's say, 3 families that he has broken into their homes and stolen lots of things, And for him to sit with his mother on one side of him and his grandmother on the other side of him and explain in minute detail how he went into somebody's bedroom and went through their underwear drawer. There's a depth there that will never be experienced in court.
It was probably the longest day of my life, even longer than the day I gave birth to him. That day at the conference, for me, I got to see a lot of my son again, and I hadn't seen that for quite some time.
And I sat down, and I sort of told my side of the story, and people started telling their sides of the story. And, geez, you know, you got to be able to listen, I think. You got to be able to take other people's feelings to heart. I caused their pain. I caused their sleepless nights. I caused myself that, too. But I was the reason that they were going through this. You know what I mean? And that opens your mind. Well, for me, it opened my eyes like, boom. I was just like, what have I done? You know, what have I become?
I think a lot of people will say, especially with young offenders, you know, that we're not hard enough on them. I think what he experienced and did through the conferencing program was harder than anybody can possibly imagine. He wasn't slapped on the wrist and sent away to not make atonement for what he did. He's had to deal with it. I think one of the greatest things is he had to face the victims for years. He still has to face them, and every time he looks at them, he has to remember and deal with what he did.
4 years later, and he's a young man now with a full-time job. He's long since finished his 180 hours of community service and served his 18 months probation. The community conference has had a profound and far-reaching effect.
It's opened my eyes sort of to a sense of community that I hadn't had before. You know, 3 families came and helped me deal with my son. A gift. It's a gift. And that's not something you take lightly. It still makes me actually really emotional when I think about it. You know, I figured I had lost him, and they cared enough to help bring him back. That means a lot.
I think it's important simply because we, as a society, have an obligation to try to help kids who are in need of help. I don't find it very difficult, and most people don't find it very difficult when a young person is in need of medical care, even very, very expensive medical care. We say, yes, we should do whatever it is we can do to help this kid. It's not helping us, but it's helping that youth. When a kid is involved in behavioral problems, like offending, or serious offending, or violent offending, that kid's life isn't going to be very good. In the long run, probably both of those kinds of interventions. I mean, medical interventions for kids with medical problems, and interventions in schools and elsewhere for kids who are having trouble coping in society will help both them and us.
But what will happen under the new youth justice system to those young people who commit repeat and violent offenses? The new system will better distinguish between violent and nonviolent crime. It will ensure that youth face consequences that reflect the seriousness of their offense and their degree of responsibility. In addition, court time and custody will be reserved primarily for violent offenses. A fundamental belief of the new system is that every young person, given the right opportunity, can be rehabilitated and reintegrated.
Did home invasions, robbed stores, robbed people. Did dope dealers' houses, drive-bys, stabbed people. I was a very bad person. I didn't care, and I didn't care for anybody.
He's been in native gangs since he was 9, and in and out of youth detention centers like this one much of his life. In fact, 80% of the young people in Manitoba's Agassiz Youth Center are Aboriginal. In many provinces, Aboriginals account for more than a third of the young people in trouble with the law. Often they're involved in gang-related crimes. Aboriginal gangs are an alarming and growing problem in Canada. The coordinator of the program Journey to a Healthy Lifestyle is determined to do something about them.
I live in an area around here in the north end of Winnipeg here, and I see lots and lots of youth around, and I see far too many youth in getting involved in the gangs, crime. Sure, it's scary. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Some of these youth that are involved in the crime and the gangs are becoming so ruthless and so violent and dangerous. And it's like sometimes you think that they don't have a conscience. Sometimes that they just their hearts are made of stone.
This young man has served 18 months of a 2-year sentence for armed robbery. He says he recognizes that he must straighten out his life, but he knows all too well that leaving a gang is a lot more difficult than joining one.
Because once you're in there, and when you get out, you know, like, I carved it into people's back because they left. I've seen people get stomped and, you know, halfway killed because they left. All because they don't want to be a part of it anymore. So, you know, once you're in it, you're in it. You're gonna die coming out.
By introducing them to Aboriginal traditions, Journey to a Healthy Lifestyle helps provide these young people with encouragement and support. On this day, they're preparing the stones they've gathered for a sweat lodge ceremony. Troy Rupert spent 15 years in and out of the prison system. He knows how important the help can be.
It's a really good way for a lot of these guys to start to feel good about themselves as Aboriginal people, and to learn about their culture and learn about being an Aboriginal person. And that's how I learned too. I learned in the institution, unfortunately, and that's the way it is for a lot of people. They don't know anything like that until they get into an institution, and that's where they learn it.
You know, they give you the support you need and they help you with it. If you got good reasons, they're gonna support you 100%. They're not willing to just guide you, and they're not willing to just point you in the right direction and say, this is what you got to do. They're willing to walk with you and show you, you know, that this is what you got to do, you know. They'll stand there while you do it, and then you go on and they'll still be there.
In fact, they'll still be there after he gets out of the youth center. Journey to a Healthy Lifestyle helps young Aboriginals return to their communities and start their lives afresh.
We don't want them spending 20 years in the institution, you know. We want to try and get these guys out, you know, get them out and stay out. And so hopefully by helping them and their families and providing some kind of foundation of traditional spiritual, you know, getting them to know who they are as Aboriginal people, and just being a support for them, you know. So as soon as they walk out the door, being a support for them, getting them involved in work, school, or whatever, you know, whatever we have to do, that's what we'll try and do.
If somebody's sentenced to custody, they eventually come out. No matter how long it takes, they're going to come out. And if they're not prepared to live in a reasonable way in the community, they're going to create more problems and be before the court. And the cost of this to the community in terms of physical harm, property damage, and just sheer expense is phenomenal.
I screamed, I swore, I called them names, everything. And then just out of the blue, I just went and grabbed this huge knife, like a meat cutting knife, and I ran after him in the house with it.
She attacked her older brother because he'd unplugged the cable for her television.
I sliced his arm a little bit, like just a little cut. And then Mom came in, and he was behind the door, and I was stabbing at the door. All I was thinking is that this guy needs to die now.
At the age of 15, she's already a recovering drug addict and an alcoholic. For the last 6 months, she's been part of Calgary's reintegration support program for young girls who've come in conflict with the law.
It's a program that supports female young offenders from their time in custody through past their release formally for 6 months after release, but we have an open door policy that provides individual support based on what young girls need individually and specifically to make it out in the real world.
Girls can be girls here. We don't have to act tough. Like here, we can be who we actually are instead of acting like we're real rough and we can kick anybody's ass.
Since girls react differently than boys to most things, it isn't surprising that they had different expectations about custody. The girls in this program developed strong ties to the people who ran it, and they weren't about to say goodbye for good.
The rule was that once you've left custody, you've left custody. And the girls decided that that wasn't the rule, that the rule was that you phone or you drop in and someone's going to talk to you. And sure enough, the staff did. And so the girls really made the changes happen in the program.
Some people think I need to be in jail. That's fine. And I think that jail didn't work for me before. And this program has actually helped me.
She was serving time for credit card fraud, and though she has completed her probation, she comes back to the reintegration support program often. She can't change her past, but she says it's time to do something about her future.
You know, I see something better in the people around me, and I look up to a lot of older people, you know, from here and out there. I just see ladies with their life together. They got stuff going for them, and I look up to that, and I want something like that now.
Providing our young people with hope for their future is an important part of the new youth justice system. It's just one of the benefits that comes when we ensure respect for our laws, make young people who break them accountable, and help them get their lives back on track.
In the future, I would anticipate that these kinds of developments will play a very significant role in the changing frontier of youth justice and what we're doing as far as trying to help young people in trouble.
The issue of youth justice is a delicate balance between protecting society and doing what's best for our young people. The programs you've just seen highlight the government's approach to youth justice, preventing youth crime, reducing the number of young people in custody, ensuring meaningful consequences, and providing intensive rehabilitation and reintegration. What do you think about the government's new approach? Please visit the website with your questions or comments about the new youth justice system. We welcome your thoughts and ideas.